In the near future, mysterious creatures appear out of nowhere, killing mankind and causing an apocalyptic event with few survivors. While various theories circulate about the origin, from bug infections to purple haze to divine punishment, though nobody knows the truth. In town, Paul is searching for supplies when sirens start wailing, prompting him to flee through the streets while hiding when necessary and avoiding screams and bombings. As black smoke engulfs the city, Paul reaches an abandoned house in the outskirts where he reunites with his babies, whom he must raise alone. 15 years later, Paul's boys have grown into healthy teenagers who live in the same house, venturing out during daylight for supplies, but remaining hidden after dark. At sunset, Joseph covers the windows and calls their dog Rocco inside while Paul waits outside until Thomas returns, scolding him for being late. Thomas explains he enjoys helping their neighbors, the Rose family, with their farm, before the three secure every entrance and sit down for dinner. Paul warns Thomas that future tardiness will cost him his freedom to leave their boundaries, which prompts Joseph to mock his brother, leading to a physical fight that Paul quickly stops by reminding them they're men, not animals. After dinner, Paul watches his sons play chess, but grows concerned when Rocco begins scratching and growling at the floor, an omen that sends Paul and Thomas downstairs, where sudden banging at the door startles them. Realizing creatures are trying to break in, they brace against the door to prevent entry, while the shaking and pounding continues for several seconds before the attackers eventually give up. Thomas criticizes Joseph for not helping, but his brother reveals he's been analyzing the attack pattern. The first attempt lasted 10 seconds, the second 20, and the final just 1. Joseph theorizes that the first was a test, the second a genuine attempt to break through, while the third was merely a frustrated hit. The next day, they discover claw marks weakening the door, so Paul and his boys venture out to find wood for reinforcement. While Thomas chops the collected wood, Paul checks on Joseph in the barn, who reluctantly admits he's building a vehicle because he's tired of feeling trapped and afraid. Despite Joseph's inability to make the car work, Paul impresses him by quickly making a few adjustments that get the engine running. Excited, Paul takes the teens driving for an hour before announcing they need to reinforce the windows, sending the boys to salvage materials from the river. Thomas protests because he had planned to visit the farm, but when Paul insists on the importance of their task, Thomas blames Joseph during their drive, claiming their father only sent Thomas to protect his brother. When Joseph dismisses needing protection, Thomas exits the car as they pass the farm, asking his brother to collect him on the return trip. Back at the house, Paul finishes reinforcing the door and takes a break to smoke alone by the waterfall, where he notices a disturbing black hole in the rocks. Meanwhile, Joseph ties himself to the car before descending into an abandoned ship at the river, where he finds a pinup from a dirty magazine that momentarily leaves him speechless. As he explores deeper, bugs suddenly swarm from a trash pile, forcing him to escape quickly as they attempt to reach his skin. At the farm, Thomas helps with chores, though his true motivation is Charlotte, the owner's daughter, as the teens' mutual crush becomes evident when they walk together through the fields. Charlotte shows Thomas a rope tied to a tree, explaining how as a child she would tether herself to gain more freedom, while technically obeying rules to stay connected to the tree, and they play a game sharing wild theories about the apocalypse's cause. When it's time for Thomas to leave, Charlotte gives him a tight hug as the setting sun signals both boys need to hurry home. Paul returns home and grows worried finding Rocco, but neither of his sons. Joseph finally gets the stubborn car started, while Thomas, running at full speed, slips and falls into a ground crevice. When Joseph drives by to collect his brother, but doesn't see him, he continues home, where Paul instructs him to lock up while he and Rocco search for Thomas. In the crevice, Thomas awakens with a sore body and, using his lighter to examine his surroundings, is shocked to see a creature reaching through a wall opening. The monster screeches, alerting Paul and Rocco, while Thomas cautiously takes out a small knife to stab the creature's hand, forcing it to retreat. As Thomas backs away, a second creature appears above and grabs his face, nearly suffocating him before Paul arrives to pull the monster off and kill it. After ensuring Thomas is unharmed, Paul and Rocco discover a tunnel leading into the crevice and decide to stay until sunrise for protection, blocking the entrance against danger. They prepare a flare as creatures approach through the hole, but suddenly the ground begins shaking as monsters burrow underground, trapping them by covering the exit with dirt. With Rocco barking frantically and the crevice rumbling, Paul orders his son and dog to move back while he places the flare into the opening ground hole, creating an explosion when creatures reach out that unfortunately injures him as well. In the house, Joseph hears creaking noises and prepares by sitting before the main door with a rope tied to his chair, eventually falling asleep. Soon, a creature tests whether Joseph is truly asleep by extending its nail through a hole in the door, and when the boy doesn't react, the monster enters, only for Joseph to reveal his ruse and pull the rope. A cage falls from the ceiling, capturing the creature, and the proud Joseph covers it with a blanket before going to sleep. The next morning, concerned about his family's absence, Joseph drives out searching while Thomas finishes digging through the fallen dirt to free the entrance and drag his severely wounded father out. Rocco follows the car's noise to guide Joseph back to his family, and the brothers immediately work together to transport Paul to the car and then to his bed at home. While discussing their next steps, Thomas notices the cage and peeks under the blanket, causing the creature to frantically thrash until Joseph quickly replaces the covering, explaining that light harms the monsters. As they bandage Paul's wounds, Joseph notes that last night's creature took only 8 seconds to enter, the shortest time yet, and believes a second monster departed, suggesting their behavior is rapidly evolving. Joseph worries something isn't right, while Thomas suggests the creatures might be seeking revenge for those killed in the cave, noting Charlotte's observation that they rarely approach the farm. When Joseph argues that only Paul killed creatures, Thomas attempts to prove himself by trying to kill the caged monster. Joseph tries stopping him to study the creature, but during their struggle, the monster escapes under the bed until Rocco's barking forces it to emerge and transform for attack. Joseph rushes to restrain it while Thomas decapitates it with an axe, after which Joseph takes the body to the barn for dissection, as Rocco and Bugs observe. Despite extensive cutting, Joseph gains no insights about the creature's nature, and Thomas suggests taking Paul to Charlotte's farm for better medical care. Joseph doubts the roses will help, but Thomas insists, and when they arrive with their father, Charlotte's parents confirm Joseph's suspicion by refusing to spare medicine for someone so gravely injured. Despite Charlotte's protests, her parents offer to let Thomas stay, arguing this would leave more resources for Paul and Joseph at their house. Joseph storms off, and when Thomas follows, an argument erupts with Joseph blaming Thomas for their father's condition, culminating in Thomas choking his brother before realizing his actions and pulling away. Joseph immediately drives away with their unconscious father while Thomas joins the farm family, where Charlotte later shares good food and personal treasures he's never seen before. The teens share a sweet kiss until Charlotte's father interrupts, sending his daughter to another room. Driving home, Joseph notices terrified sheep and dirt mounds everywhere, indicating underground creature movement, and upon arrival, he spots a dirt path near the wall, suggesting monsters beneath the house. After tending to his father, Joseph gathers materials in the barn for a new plan and begins blocking windows, but falls through when stepping on a carpet concealing a hole. He concludes the monsters have already infiltrated the building. At the farm, Charlotte discovers Thomas searching the kitchen for medicine, still concerned about his father and planning to leave. Charlotte provides the medicine and Thomas thanks her with a hug, promising to return, unaware of eavesdroppers. But before reaching the gate, a farm employee aims a gun at him, accusing him of theft. Despite Thomas' desperate explanation that Charlotte gave him the medicine, the man disbelieves him, and employees drag Thomas to the barn where they restrain him and play music to mask their intended punishment. As they prepare to shoot Thomas' legs, a hole suddenly appears beneath one man who falls through, misfiring his weapon, while the others rush to help just as a creature leaps from the opening. In the main house, Charlotte's parents awaken to noise, and when her father lights a candle to investigate, a creature enters and attacks. The fallen candle ignites a fire while the monster assaults both parents, causing the mother to flee toward her daughter's room before another creature intercepts her. The monster transforms, regurgitating over the woman before striking, while Charlotte, hearing her parents' murders, emerges from her bedroom horrified. She follows a blood trail to discover the creature in the bathroom, with her mother's body attached to its back. At the barn, the men futilely battle creatures as they're killed one by one, while those escaping outside are hunted down as more monsters arrive. As the barn catches fire, Thomas breaks free by knocking over the furniture he's tied to, but when a creature finds him, Charlotte appears and shoots it down. The teens flee outside where Thomas sees the burning house, and after Charlotte explains her parents are dead, they agree to seek refuge at Thomas' home. Meanwhile, Joseph throws furniture into the hole to buy time, then checks on his unconscious father, kissing his forehead before preparing for battle. The door hole suddenly opens, revealing Thomas and Charlotte, and Joseph admits needing his brother's help just as Paul finally regains consciousness. After taking the medicine, Paul encourages his sons to keep fighting, so Joseph shares his plan while they gather gas cans from the barn as Rocco barks warnings of approaching danger. The group moves an old freezer into the house while Thomas and Charlotte reinforce remaining windows, and Joseph creates a furniture pile doused with gas and topped with explosives, and one of his father's slowly burning cigarettes. Suddenly, the whole covering begins shaking as a creature descends the chimney into Paul's room. Another monster emerges from the hole and crosses a doorway where Thomas ambushes it with a knife, and though it counterattacks, he retrieves his weapon to deliver a fatal stab to its head. Charlotte shoots down a third creature before rejoining the others moving the freezer, when suddenly Paul appears covered in blood after killing the chimney monster. Paul takes Charlotte's gun and fires at the floor, targeting creatures below, but the massive horde soon fills the corridor, charging toward him. Paul kicks the lead creature, causing a chain reaction that sends most monsters crashing through the floor, while the teens dispatch the remaining few, impressing Paul with their teamwork. The three teens and Rocco run to the freezer, but instead of following, Paul closes the door to buy them time. While the group hides inside, Paul reflects on comforting his babies years ago as a new horde attacks, distracting them until the furniture pile explodes, destroying the house in flames. The freezer rolls for several minutes before stopping, and when the teens emerge to search for Paul, a creature suddenly lunges out from the debris. They race to the car and flee while the flaming monster pursues, resisting Charlotte's bullets until she strikes it with her gun, causing it to disintegrate. Miles later, the group stops to gaze at the stars, something they'd never witnessed before due to nightly confinement. The next morning, they return to the house but decide against rebuilding, instead gathering supplies, burying their loved ones, and saying final goodbyes. Afterward, the three teens and Rocco depart in the car, hoping to establish a new home in the valley farms below.